Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Follow Your Passion podcast. I'm your host, Erwin Wils. I'm a mindset and business strategist and founder of Millionaire Life Strategy. In this podcast, I'm interviewing my clients and other entrepreneurs that are following their passion and make a good living out of it. When you want to know more about me or what I can do for you, check out my website, millionaireLifestrategy.com. But first, check out this episode of Follow Your Passion. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Follow Your Passion. Let me introduce our guest of today. It's Eliav Cohen. After working the corporate world for about 10 years, Eliav started his own consulting business, co-founded 2 other companies, became a chief pilot of a hot air balloon in Seattle in 2016, and in 2018, he became the founder of the Bot Lab. It's very technical. It's about the chatbot, but Eliav can tell us much more about it than I can. But he seems like to be a serial entrepreneur and a great fit for this podcast. So welcome, Eliav. How are you doing?
Doing amazing. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Well, so tell me about the Bot Lab. You told me early in the pre-talk a little bit about it, but let our listeners hear what it's actually about, because I think it's very special.
Yeah. So if you think about it, everyone has chatbots on their own website, right? Mm-hmm. Like at this point, it's like 86% of all websites have a chatbot, right? So you can have immediate interaction and you can have high intent buyers that are on your website. You can chat with them, right?
Yeah.
What we did was we built a way that allows, if let's say there's an article written about you, and let's say like Forbes magazine or the New York Times or some review site, right? It allows the brand, you as the brand, to use your same chatbot you already have in order to chat with the users that are reading the article on Forbes in real time. So essentially it expands that if someone is reading a high intent article, right, that you wrote for a specific audience, you can now book meetings, right, from Forbes, right? It's just insane, right?
Yeah.
So you can book a meeting, you can live chat with people, and the better your AI chatbot is, the more it can answer questions directly on there. But it gives real-time communication and what we call is the dark funnel, right? Before they've reached your website, where you can communicate and book meetings at high intent.
Nice. You already mentioned it, AI, artificial intelligence. I guess the Bot Lab is also making big part of artificial intelligence to use those functionalities.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had the opportunity to go to Necker Island, to Richard Branson's island back in December. And there are about 20 of us there called the Digital Guardians, which the whole idea was the top AI folks in the world. A lot of guys from Google DeepMind and from OpenAI and, a lot of political folks. They're there as well to discuss how do we make sure, AI doesn't destroy us, but we use it for good, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that came out of that conversation, besides being like awesome hanging out with Richard Branson and getting my butt kicked in the chest by him, besides that, it was interesting. Andrew Yang was there. Andrew Yang ran for president back in the last election. And he talks a lot about AI stuff, right? And how it impacts jobs and what's going to be happening. And same thing, Elon Musk talks about it too, right? And while we were talking about it, he said, we're going to have the biggest job loss because of AI. And that's primarily because it gives a better user experience, right? Like if you go to a site and you have a question like, where the hell's my package at? That doesn't require a human being, right? It's an AI that goes, oh, I found your email. Is this the right order? Here's your info, right? And so our system also uses a lot of AI because all of these chatbots, whatever chatbots someone uses on their own site, the better the AI is, the less it requires a human to interact no matter where it is, right? Whether it's on their own website or it's on a third-party site. The biggest challenge that happens is if, let's say there's an article about you in the New York Times, that's a lot of random people, right? That could be chatting with you. That's where when you get hundreds of thousands, even like 1,000 conversations in a day, you need an AI that can answer basic questions, right? And that's how I got into this whole thing in the first place, was with the hot air balloon company. Right. I started this hot air balloon company and I was using live chat. And I was like, Well, people keep asking me the same damn questions. Like it was literally like, how high do you go? How many people fit in a balloon? Can I have sex in the balloon? Normal questions.
Of course.
And anyway, I was like, there's got to be a way to automate this. So I had automated it for my own site, and then very quickly became the super user and one of the top, chatbot experts working with, mid-market and giant brands and helping them figure this stuff out. But that's really where, when you look at where AI is going with all of this, it's, as customer service people don't need to be involved, and AI really can handle 95% of those questions. And really people just have like one question they want to book a meeting, one question they want to purchase a product, no matter where it is.
Nice. So you're actually saying that from your, you still have it, but let's say your previous company, the hot air ballooning.
I still actually have it. It's
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. But
we've had 17,000 conversations in chat that we didn't talk to people. And the conversion rate is through the roof because we don't have to talk to people anymore. It's amazing.
Yeah. So it was actually a problem you experienced on your day-to-day activities.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, when I started that company, the amount of phone calls you get, I mean, people, when they call, they just want to tell you their whole life story about like why they want to go ballooning, right? Like, but they have like one question. It's just, hey, can my mom who's 100 years old come? Hey, can this? And so the amount of conversations, I realized that if I turned my phone off and the message said, go back to our website where you can get a live people or an AI chatbot to answer your questions, people stopped, they still booked. It just didn't matter. And you find that people really don't care. They just want that one or two answers so they can make a decision.
Nice. And it was so successful that you decided to create a new company around it, right?
Well, it was interesting. We started doing originally consulting, right? For folks that are on Drift, the top kind of AI, chatbot platform that exists for mostly B2B stuff. And I started building back like 2017 of just like helping companies that need kind of the same thing I built, right? And quickly we started working with like mid-market and enterprise companies, all these big organizations. And one of the things that we found was the highest converting chatbot is on content. So if you have a website and you've got content that you're currently gating, because that's how you try to get leads, right? And you're like, I'll just gate this really good content that I want them to read, which I think is hilarious in its own. But if you ungate that content because it's good, people ask questions, right? Because it's interesting.
Yeah.
And we found it was a 50 to 70% email capture if on your own site it's in content, right? Of like a good article versus gated content, you get a bunch of bunk email addresses and you follow up and you hope like through automation, you might get some meetings out of it, right? So that we realized, well, the same thing. Well, what if it was an article on Forbes? What if it was an article in the New England Journal of Medicine for someone who's going for doctors? That's now an exact group that is a real question based on that segment. And it's the same numbers, and so it's just, how do you take someone from top of funnel to the bottom of funnel instantly?
Nice. And how's it working out for you, the bot lab?
It's jamming. So, we're now able to, as of this week, we can now integrate with any chatbot platform. So it doesn't matter what system someone uses, whether they are on Intercom or they're on Ada or they're on Qualified or they're on Drift or like one of the other 100 random, chatbot platforms. If you have an article that's being talked about you on an industry site or on a major publication, now it allows that. So it's really a new type of ad unit is really what we created. That's like an ad chat unit, right? It's in real-time communication and so what's fascinating about it is like, as a brand, you're like, hell yeah. Like I get to chat with people on Forbes, right? Like there's an article about me. Hell yes, I want to talk to people, right?
Yeah.
The publisher's like, yeah, we're happy to make money, right? Because they don't make money on non-earned media, right? Even sponsored content or paid for content, it's still like fill out this form and it's still the system doesn't really work well. So in this case, like on a sponsored content, you can just now chat on it. And then from a user standpoint, users like, great, I can read an article. And when I have a question, I can get a hold of someone from the company no matter where I'm at. And so it ends up being this like win-win for everyone. So it's been really, we've been doing a lot of tests with large publishers right now, brands, and then e-commerce brands. And it's been wildly successful. And so now we're expanding that.
Nice. Nice. And I also saw in your working experience, you got a lot of marketing and sales experience, right?
Yep.
Did it come with your technical skills as well, or?
So, it's interesting. I originally, I look at bots. I'm building bots very similar to sales, right? Because really, like, a bot is a transactional sale, right? Like, it's a transactional right now. So where I learned to sell was I actually sold educational books door to door, 80 hours a week for 9 summers. And I trained people how to sell books, and I trained students and all this. And one of the things I realized, when you think about a bot and you talk about like personalization and all things that cause conversion, when you would go to a door, and I learned this when I was in college, right? If you go to a door and randomly knock, you don't even know if they have kids, and you're selling books, like, that's probably not good, right?
Yeah,
so you start to find, like, what information can I get? So you'd talk to the neighbor and go, hey, who's got kids in school? And so you'd find out, great, they've got kids in school next door, or their kids are grown and gone. And then you'd find out, great, are they in like public? Do you know if they're in the public school or private? Oh, cool, awesome. Do you know when I'd be able to catch them, if they're at home now, or if I should try later? I don't want to stop by if they're not there. So you get all this information, right? We call that as personalization data. And in a chatbot, you get all that same personalization data anyway, right? Like, about them, you can do ABM style account-based marketing experiences. And then when you go to the door, you can then say, hi, are you Sarah? Great. My name's Eliav. I'm sitting up all the parents and teachers at Adventist Academy, talking to parents of advanced students in school. I have 10 minutes with each family. So it allows like that personalization. That's the same thing in a bot, right? So a bot is, can we give company name personalization? Can we give any other personalization? Do we know who that specific market is? So if you're on a specific page for anesthesiologists, you should only be talking to the anesthesiologist, right? And then where it finally comes around bots is it comes down to, what is the goal? Well, the goal of knocking on a door is to get a demo, right? It's to sit down, or any type of sales call, right? It's to get a demo. Well, with a bot, what's the goal? To get a demo. It's the same thing. So you're not selling in this bot world. The idea is, can you transition from here's a bot conversation into immediate Zoom meeting? Can I transfer it to a demo? Can I answer one question and get them on a call, right? It's the same type of idea. So really, I'd say that goes along with it in the same way. And then I use the same thing with hot air ballooning. I literally land in random people's yards, right? That are, people in our area. And I have an app that tells me everybody's name of the plot map, and I know where I'm landing, right? It's the same idea, all personalization relationships, and you always have one goal.
Wow. And it's actually funny that you mentioned it, because I never looked at it that way, that, you try to increase your conversion rate, right, by doing this personalization, but you're actually already were doing that when you were just selling door-to-door books.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
And that's amazing.
I found it hilarious, because when I started building chatbots, I was like, wow, people have these like really complicated chatbots that don't ask any closing questions or don't use intent. And what you learn in sales is you learn, well, what is my goal, right? Okay, my goal is to do this, but you're not like throwing up your product all over a prospect, right? Like, no one does that. They want to do discovery questions, right? But you're not even there yet with the chatbot. Your goal is just like, let's just get there. And so it's really, it's fascinating that when you build a chatbot properly, when someone asks a question, it can understand the intent, right? So on the ballooning site, for example, if someone says like, how high do you go? That's not a high intent question. That's like a, hey, I'm curious, maybe I'm scared of heights, something around that. But if they say, hey, so it just answers the question. But if it says, hey, do you have availability for 2 on Thursday? I'd say that's a pretty high intent question.
Yeah, exactly.
And it understands that and goes, we have online booking. Do you want a sunrise or sunset flight? So it works the same way as door-to-door sales. It's a transactional sale. And where I find it hilarious, and this is the funniest thing, there's tons of enterprise sales organizations that use chatbots, and they are hilariously confused that they think everything is this giant enterprise sale. It's really all broken down to small transactional sales, right? Can you get a meeting? Can you get the decision makers on? And enterprise salespeople miss that. And I think it's really funny. And it all comes back to chatbots and door-to-door transactional sales. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. And a chatbot actually does what it's supposed to do, right? Asking questions, answering them. But it's the people behind it that are configuring the answers. And most chatbots that I come across are, can I help you? These are opening hours. And they're, if it's sales related, they're asking questions to see if there's a match with the product instead of getting them for a chat or on a Zoom meeting. They're all trying to sell. Well, and the questions they ask are related to the product.
Yeah.
So do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need this? Right. Then is this is the best fit for you. You should buy it. Please do.
Yeah. So it's interesting when you look at the reason someone's clicking on a chatbot, right? You have to think about why are they clicking on it in the first place? They're clicking on it because they believe they can get an answer quickly, right? Or get to someone quickly who can answer their question. And as a prospect, really what we're doing is we're trying to qualify the company, right? Because we're like, hey, I need a product like this. Does it integrate with this? Does it do this one thing? Does it cost $30,000 or $5,000, right? And we all have those qualifications that we're trying to qualify the company as the company's trying to qualify us. So a chatbot has to do both. It has to allow the user to qualify the company, at the same time allowing that company to ask one or two qualifying questions to make sure they're a good fit, right? So it's kind of this I look at it kind of like a partnership, right? You're really on both sides trying to go, great, is this a fit for me as a prospect? And is this a fit for the company? Otherwise, neither of us should waste our time. And that's where chatbots are wildly successful in being able to do that. Yeah. But most companies, the miss they do is they focus so much on the questions they have of a prospect because salespeople want what? Perfect leads, right? I want qualified leads that are in market, that have a budget, that already know all this crap. That's not most of your leads. Most of your leads are people, you don't need these nice to have questions. Do you have a budget? Nobody has a budget specifically for your product, right? If your product is good and it fills a need, they will find money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I think it's the biggest mistake that the companies make with chatbots is they ask nice to have questions versus need to have. So a need to have is we only work with clients with over 100 employees. Well, if you're under, we're not going to chat with you. Let's not book a meeting, right? Or only over this much in revenue, or only if you integrate with Salesforce. Does that make sense? So it's really those need to haves become important versus the nice to have.
It reminds me of a remark that one of my coaches shared with me, that he said, sometimes people say they don't have money, but let's imagine that you have this disease that's incurable, right? That the disease rate is about 98 to 99%. However, there's a specific method that can cure this disease with almost a 100% success rate. The only drawback is that it costs $100,000. It's abroad, and you have to take this treatment within a month.
Yep.
Right? So would you be able, what would you do in that situation, right? Would you say, well, I'll take my chances, I don't have the money right now, or I'll just look for a month, and if I succeed, then I'll look further? Or are you going to do everything in your power to get those 100K, because you most likely will survive after that month?
Yeah, there was a really
and he said it's never an issue about budget or money. It's about priorities.
Yeah, there was a quote that was that I heard early on that was I think it was by Og Mandino. He's wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World. This is back in the 1960s. I used to use it as my Bible, selling, because it's got great motivational stuff. And one of the things was there, it says, a dying man would give all of his gold and money for just one more breath, right? And again, unfortunately, it's not that with business, right? It's not like, oh, if we don't do this, get this software, we'll die. I look at it more of that they just don't have money for you. They've got lots of money, lots and lots of money to spend in a variety of places. And it's does this provide something that's going to be more value than spending it somewhere else? And I used to find this selling books door to door, even like someone would go, I don't have the money. I go, well, some families are like going to Disney World this summer and buying trampolines, and other parents are doing the education thing. Which were you thinking of doing? Right. Like, and some would go, we're going to Disneyland. And other ones go, yeah, we'll go and get them. Right. And so I think that, if you have a real product that is a need, and that comes back to, and just selling in general, right? Do you have a product that is a real need, or is it a nice to have? Yeah. Things that are real needs. And when you can find those discovery questions, you'll find the need very, very quickly. Unfortunately, that is not the time to do it in a chatbot. The time in a chatbot is not the time to try to find this hardcore need. The goal is, are they qualified? And is this the right fit? Where then when I chat with them, I can then find a real need when we get a conversation. I think it's the biggest confusion with companies around bots. They really want all this hilarious information they don't need.
Yeah, so
blows me away every time. Every day I work with clients and they're like, we need to know this. I was like, do you really? Because shouldn't a salesperson just ask that?
Yeah.
Like if they have any skills.
Yeah. So would you say that the chatbots are actually a filtering mechanism to get the right people on calls with the salespeople, or the people that are actually are looking how they can add value to the clients that call them?
Yeah, I mean, it's both, right? One is like, yes, it does a filter, right? So you're not having conversations with the wrong people or demos, right?
Yeah.
But it also takes ones that are really high intent, that are like even when I went to go buy Salesforce a couple of years ago, do you know, it was very challenging to buy it. It was hilarious. Like I called and they're like, oh, I can't handle your territory. And this other person was like, well, we need to do a full demo. I was like, I know I already want Salesforce. Can I just buy it for the love of God, guys? Like they make it so challenging. It's really funny. And I think that those, that it's really is, can you capture someone at their highest intent moment? That's what that chatbot does. And the way to do it is you get rid of your forms and you allow a chatbot to answer the one or two qualifying questions, and then let people book a meeting, or allow live chat during the day. If someone has a question, great. Answer their question. Who cares? If you take 1 minute, answer someone's question, ask a qualifying question, find out they're not qualified, great. Don't continue it. But you also may find that you can use it as like an account-based marketing tool where someone is on your hit list. They come to your site and now you're like, hey, we've been really excited to talk to AMD. Glad you're finally here. And that's all automated, but then it can get a real rep on to continue the conversation. And that's where you can use like the account-based marketing stuff that everyone wants to do. Right? Account-based marketing, personalization, all that's really sexy. But the first thing is get rid of your damn forms and put a bot instead that allows people to book meetings. If you just do that, it may not be as sexy as like the personalization, all these other little things. Personalization and that sexy stuff and ABM programs don't cause people 100% lift in demos. What causes it is getting rid of their damn forms that no one wants to fill out anyway and having accelerated revenue because you're actually booking meetings in real time and chatting with people, right?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I love the enthusiasm you talk about it. And you have a lot of knowledge as well about the subject, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't be successful with your chatbots.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting thing is, there's a lot of, it's not actually the building of the chatbots themselves, right? There's some knowledge that it takes to build chatbots and make sure the routing works with Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it is, or Zoho, whatever people are using, and all the automation tools. Like there's some work there, right? And to get it right of the language and make sure it's good sales copy. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to a lot of is like change management, right? I mean, someone who's used HubSpot for 15 years that like is obsessed with their forms, and they go, this is our highest way of getting leads is through our form. Well, how do you help that person realize, let's not do that anymore, because you get double the amount of demos by using a chatbot instead of more qualified people and having it be faster time to demo, and sales people not having to email people, right? Like for follow-up to try and get them into a demo. And a lot of people, it just takes a long time, to get past that. It's something that's a change and different. But the problem is that society has changed and buyers have changed, and they're not willing to fill out forms anymore. And they're not willing to wait to get a question answered, because by the time you get back to them, they've already forgotten about your damn product. So, and I have that happen to me all the time. Like I had someone call me from like 7 months ago. I filled this like random form and I was like, dude, that ship has sailed and I have no idea what this is even about or what your company does. He goes, well, let me remind you. What a waste, right? Like in that moment, I probably would have bought. That's the difference. It's like, so the way to get left behind is to just have forms on your website, not have a chatbot, right? And not allow people to book and not have automation. Like that is the way to fail in 2022 to 2025.
Yeah.
It is a guaranteed almost failure because users just are more willing to do business with brands that have bots that have immediate interaction. And, you know, it's that in the moment.
Interesting. So I guess you got a big market ahead of you.
I mean, what we're building is $100 billion market. So I'd say that's a decent sized market. And we're not only in the chatbot space, expanding chatbots in their next natural progression, but also now we're in the ad space, right? And allows us to create the highest intent lead gen possible with allowing real interaction in real time. And it's fascinating. You know, we'll see where it all goes, but I can't, I know if it's growing, if the entire chatbot market is growing by 31% and it's already at $100 billion market, just that portion, I'm pretty sure it's going to keep going up. And then as AIs get better and all that, eventually it'll just be, you know, it goes back to Andrew Yang, right? What happened, or Elon Musk, what happens when you have an AI that can answer real questions? What happens when you have an AI that can tell you where your crap is?
Yeah.
Like what happens when you have an AI that can like answer a lot of it and help you with personalized stuff in your account, right? There's just
I remember that seeing a demo on YouTube where a Google Voice app was actually calling a hairdresser to book an appointment for its client. And the hairdresser just answered the phone and she was just having a normal conversation with the Google Voice.
Yep.
And that was amazing, you know, before you know it, chatbots are talking to each other.
Yeah. And they are, I mean, that's where it becomes interesting is like, you know, can you take, you know, one service and can connect to the other where they can work with each other. Right. I mean, how nice would it be sometimes, you know, if you can have like your bank chatting with PayPal about, or something else around some fraud thing, like, why are we even involved? If like one can go, well, here's what happened and here's this, and they can work together very quickly. And eventually, you know, you automate a lot of that stuff with APIs and whatever else. But, you know, with Web3, I'm sure a lot of that stuff's gonna be available, but it becomes pretty fascinating in general.
Yeah.
I'm excited and also sad for the day that we have AI so ubiquitous that a lot of those jobs go away. And then it's like, well, what do those people do? Right. Because this really does get rid of that. Right. It really gets a lot of like, it's like what, 80% or something. Like I think it's the top job in America is customer service, you know, like on the phone or in the world. Like what happens when you get rid of those? Where do those folks go then? Right. Well, they have to do something else that's valuable, but it's not going to be in like, let me tell you where your package is at. Or like, oh, my package is late. Great. It can automatically give you a 20% discount or give you a refund. I mean, there's nothing that's challenging about that. It's just, are people building it enough? And we're just even talking on the sales side right now, you know, just the initial. You know,
are those chatbots also like self-learning mechanisms? Do they expand their rule base and stuff like that?
Yeah, so some are. It depends on the way that they're built. So, you know, AI and you know, machine learning allows in a chatbot, to give you an example of the way that it can work. When it gives an answer, right? You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Basically, a human right now looks at it and goes, did it give the right answer based on this question, based on the variant of the question you gave? So if you ask like, hey, what's your favorite color versus is your favorite color blue or green or like something, it should know that answer, right?
Yeah.
And very basic. And it's up to a human to go, yeah, that's the right answer. Now, once it learns 7 or 8, 9, 10 variants, at that point, there's no variant that it can miss, right? And then it knows the answer. Another way is that, but typically right now it's all human, right? There's still a human until it gets good enough. But what's fascinating is there's really only 80 to 100 questions anyone will ask about a product ever. So if there's only 80 questions, how many variants and answers do you really need? So it's coming up those first like 100, right? What are the most common? Now with my chatbot, on the ballooning site, for example, you can ask, hey, like, what are your hobbies? Does anyone ask that? No, it's like a golden nugget that talks about Jules Verne and hot air balloon history, right? Or if you say like, hey, can my dog come? Like it shows like a hilarious gif of a dog flying in a hot air balloon and then says no, right? Or can I smoke weed in a balloon? Like there's a lot of like weird questions people ask. And if someone asks a new one and I can't answer it, I have to look, is this an edge case or is this a real question?
Yeah.
Right, that I need to do. And depending on how often that comes up, then you build it out for that variant, but it still requires human stuff and it always will until you get enough variants. Then the ML takes over, machine learning, and the AI goes, oh, got it. This is within this variant data set of these 10 or 20 different variants. This is the answer to give. And that's the way Alexa works, right?
Yeah.
So if you ask a second time for it, Alexa learns, but eventually you just go, play this and it'll find the right song, right? I mean, that's the way that, they all work in the same way with machine learning and AI, but that's the way that there's always some human involvement to help to get that initial data set and make sure it's correct as it grows.
Nice.
And each chatbot has a different AI system. There's a lot of different ones. It just depends on, there's all kinds of cool ones,
So is there any funny story that you experienced while using a chatbot or that you heard from a client?
Yeah. So my very first time building a chatbot, right? So I was building it for my balloon site. It was like 2017. I'm just getting into chatbots. And I built my chatbot. I was really excited. And I sent it out there on Facebook. I go, guys, check out, I built this amazing chatbot, answers every question. Everything everyone asked broke the chatbot. So it was like, what do you wear? And it just like, I don't know that answer, right? It just like giving random stuff. I just didn't understand yet around like groups of wording of it contains a word versus an exact phrase. So I built in the question, can you have sex in a balloon? Right? To make sure if someone asked, because someone jokingly asked that on like Facebook, and I was like, all right, like I'll put it in there. So I whatever I put in, it ended up, instead of saying no, it said, yeah, let's get you booked for the flight. And I was like, that's not good, right? And so it was like really funny of like the chatbot fails of stuff like that, where it's just in the way that the AI is set up, right? Like, so to give you the most basic example, if you say it contains the word cat, right? Well, if then someone writes the word category, it includes that. Or catatonic, it includes that. Or so there's all those. So as a partial contains, it can contain any one of many words, right? And then it looks like that's give an answer. Well, that's a challenge, right? As you get more advanced AIs that are outside of just contains a word versus an exact phrase match or an exact word match to give it a specific answer or off that variant, well, then you got NLP, like neuro-linguistic programming, that can go, what is the intent of this word and this word to get the right answer? And that's where we're at now, right? The advanced AIs are able to do that. And it's really cool.
Yeah, nice. And great that you mentioned it, because I use it a lot as well, that you were looking for a certain document, and it had one specific word in it. I looked for it, and it just happened to be that particular word you were looking for was just a part of a bigger word. And that was like a commonly used word. So you got thousands of hits that exactly didn't help your search.
Yeah, exactly. And it works in everything, right? In ads, whatever it is, like it's how do you, and you really have to think through that. In a chatbot, you see it right away because you see someone ask the question and it fails. And you're like, oh, that's not good, right? In ads, you're just like, oh, wow, where did that word come from? Or why are we getting all this traffic from here? But when I look at, traffic in general, I mean, even what's crazy is, even with the ballooning side, I mean, I've, 20 to 30,000 people a month that come to the hot air ballooning site. I built that a lot with other AI programs. I use AI writers and I use AI SEO stuff and I use chatbots and I use all of that combined in order to create entire, systems that allow us to grow. I use it for all my social posts. I mean, it's like everything is connected. And then on the back end, when you do a social post, if someone comes back to your website, should it give a specific chatbot conversation? Of course course it should. Right. So all those things end up being connected. You do an ad, you build an ad with an AI like Jasper or whatever, lots of them, right? You get your ad up. And then when they come to the site, you need to make sure, that it's a contextual conversation. So it all comes back to ad, to chatbots and and I call it contextualization, right? Is it contextual to where they're coming from, what they're looking for, where they're at? And that all comes back to Helium, right? As well, with the platform we built is if it's contextual on the site you're on of the article, well, why not just have the contextual conversation on there? Like, why are we forcing them to come to your website anymore? Right? If it does just a good job, you wrote the article anyway, right? You put it on someone else's site, you might as well just book meetings on it,
Nice. So if you look at the bot lab, you already mentioned a lot of things. It's not only building the chatbot, but it's also maintaining it, improving it. Due to new insights, new questions people ask. You start to see a rhythm, you start to see a structure, so you need to adjust your programming as well. What's, in your very own words, what's the challenge that keeps it fun and entertaining for you?
I find fun is seeing a client grow their conversations by like 300%. Like, that's fun. Or seeing a client I had a client go from 0 demos booked, and they were spending, $30,000 a year on their chatbot platform, to 385 demos in 20 days.
Oh, wow.
That's stupid. I did another one that this is an educational company, and they had booked like 180 demos of being sick in the last 6 months of being on, Drift. We ended up working with them. They booked 3,000 meetings that year. That's really fun, right? And so I look at it as like, how do you it's a whole problem solve of like with chatbots when you work with companies in general is there's building them, which is one piece of the puzzle. Then it's all the change management. So my favorite conversations that I have fun with, you're talking about like being passionate, like having fun. I love talking to people, what we were talking about earlier about, is that a nice to have or a need to have?
Yeah.
And I push back so hard on them, right? Because we're outside consultants, so we can do that. And now like, I love, and then my other thing is I love building new things, right? Of having scale. I've always done startups, and I love the process we're in right now, which is that go-to-market strategy, right? Where you're like, hey, here's how many clients we have. How do we go and get that next 150, 200, 300, 500,000 clients? And how fast and quickly can we do that? And I just find it fun. So my rule in life is one rule. I will not do anything that is not half as fun as flying a hot air balloon. And that is my rule, because flying hot air balloons is really fun. Yeah. Chatbots, 51%.
Nice.
As long as it stays above 50%, I'm good. If it ever drops beneath, I'm out. Screw it. There is no point in doing something that is not fun. And I remember, doing consulting for a big company in New York. It's a big startup that was crushing it. And this guy the CEO goes, Eliav, like, we'll pay you, like $500,000, $600,000-$700,000, whatever you want to come and continue helping building this. Like, you've done a great job. And I was like, there's no amount that you can pay me to not fly hot air balloons this summer. And he's like, no, that's not true. There's always a price. I go, there is no amount you can pay me to not go do what I love. And the problem was his business wasn't interesting enough for me. Although I was doing some AI machine learning stuff, in what it was doing, I wasn't interested in tax stuff and saving people on like around their like payroll taxes and stuff. Like, I had no interest there. It wasn't fun as interest. I find chatbots fascinating. I find ballooning fascinating. I find, I'm having Andrew Yang is like, I'm taking ballooning on Saturday,
Nice.
I find fun connecting with interesting people and being able to do something that you love, that's interesting, that makes a difference for people. And that's where my passion comes from. Yeah. But again, anything that is not 50% or more of what you love doing, you shouldn't do it. You should literally quit and go find another thing to do. I mean, how about you? Like with podcasting, right? Like, you obviously love what you're doing on here. You ask good, engaging questions. Like, what's the thing that's more fun than what you do here? That's like, that you're like, hey, if it's not half as fun as this, I'll stop podcasting,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And very interesting. I think that you said you are challenging your clients as well, and you push back, right? The first thing that came to my mind is, I would love to work with you, but would you be, once we start working together, would you be able to manage all those additional appointments you get? Because if you're used for getting like 200 appointments in half a year, and you go to 3,000, do they have the capacity to deal with that?
But this is this is a separate challenge. I just had this conversation with a company a couple of days ago. They said, hey, what are we going to do if we have too many leads? We have too many demos. And I said, well, it sounds like I go, how long are your salespeople's conversations? And they go, well, we do a discovery call first. That's 25 minutes. I go, okay, what questions are you asking? And they went through all these questions. I said, well, sounds like you're asking too many questions. You need to ask one or two qualifying questions, find the need, qualify them, and see if it's worth going through. And if it's a no, it's a 5-minute no. If it's a yes, it's a 15-minute yes, and then get the right people on the next call. So what's funny is when I used to sell books, we did 5-minute no's, 15-minute yeses. The idea is if in 5 minutes, even if you sit down with someone, you find out it's a no, the faster you can get out of there gives you the opportunity to have a conversation with someone else. I've never, ever in my entire life had a salesperson go, gosh, I just had too many demos booked on my calendar. I just couldn't handle it. No, you get really good at being intentional with your questions, finding needs quickly and closing in 1 to 2 calls versus having 3 to 6 month sales processes. So I can tell you, our sales process, even when we were selling like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 consulting deals, right? To like help these companies build out their chatbots. It's 2 calls. I mean, sometimes it's 1 call. Yeah. That for a lot of people is mind blowing because they go, well, how do you sell an enterprise sale like that? And I go, you're just finding a need and you happen to be the person that can help and you get the right people on and you have a good follow-up process and my calls are 30 minutes. Like I tried someone for 30 minutes and give us $50,000. Well, that's normal. If an enterprise sales reps can learn how to do that, you just find people that are buyers and you get them, and the non-buyers, you let them go and you put it into an automation, right? There's all kinds of, that's a great problem to have. Like, oh man, I have too many demos booked. Like any salesperson that tells me that, like you can solve any of those issues.
Nice.
The hard thing is how do we get,
it reminds me as well from, my wife shared a story that she got a sales call from somebody, so outbound call center. Yeah. And he was asking all kind of questions, and it was about life insurance and stuff like that, right? And she had a really entertaining conversation with that person. And just before he wanted to make his offer, he said, oh, I just have to ask you one question. Does you or your spouse work with an insurance company or a financial institution, right? Or because we can't compete with those organizations. And she said, well, that's actually funny because I work here and my husband works with a financial institution. Oh, I'm sorry. Then we can't have... I can't offer you anything, right? So we better end the call.
That's so often.
And it was about 20, 25 minutes conversation.
So think how often that happens, right? And I think it's something that salespeople need to really think about. And again, that's where, again, a chatbot solves those basic qualifying questions, right? Like before a demo, like you already know, like they're a basic fit, right?
Yeah.
But on those calls, I think the dumbest question I've ever heard anyone ever ask me, and it's the most common question anybody asks on the beginning of a sales call, which is, tell me about your business. And I'm like, A, you don't care. B, I don't care. And C, it doesn't make any impact to this conversation whatsoever. The real question is, show you're an expert, right? Show you're an expert. So when you get on the phone with someone and you say, hey, I talked to a lot of companies in blank. They tell me they're running into one of 3 boats. They're either here, or all of the above. Where are you at? And they're going to go, I'm here. And you ask one additional question to get clarification on it, and you have the need. That takes literally 45 seconds to a minute and a half. And then you ask 1 or 2 qualifying questions, and then you go, great. Are you the one that handles kind of everything around this? Or are there other people involved in your organization? Are there others? Great. Let me give you a real quick overview so you understand a little what it is. And let's go and set a meeting up with everyone. Does that work? If it makes sense after like a couple of minutes? Yeah. And if not, awesome. You show them, they go, yeah, that makes sense. Great. Let's go and get another meeting set up with everyone. That takes 10 minutes. Instead, what salespeople do, they spend an hour doing the dumbest discovery questions I've ever heard. Like, tell me this and this, and it's hilarious. And again, I love discovery questions, but they're only with one goal in mind. Again, goal with the chatbot, book a meeting. Goal of knocking, get a meeting. Goal of discovery questions, find the freaking need and then move on. Stop searching for every little thing. It doesn't matter, right? So, again, so that's why I say you could have 20 demos a day and be just fine. You're just going to be better at finding, hey, this person's a real need. This one isn't. They're not ready. Cool. Let's put them to automation. Let's put this one here. Right. And you start to find the buyers. And when you do that many, you just find buyers. Nothing else. You don't care anymore.
Yeah, it's all about qualifying, right?
It's just buyers. You find buyers and qualify them. And the other ones, like, let them go. Who cares? You got plenty. And that's a hard mentality for most salespeople to get into because they don't have enough demos normally. Yeah. So they're still like, I have to get this one. Oh my God, let me spend 40 hours like trying to close this whale that'll never close. You know, I think it's funny. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I'm afraid we can have this conversation for hours, Eliav, and I really enjoy it, but I have to take a little bit of time into account. So if you could share one little tip or a little piece of wisdom or experience to the audience, what would it be?
I think it's the one I said earlier is whatever you love, right? Whatever you love doing and you are actually excited about, whether it's like fishing or skydiving, mine ballooning, or it's traveling, like don't do anything for work that is not half as fun as that. That's it. And then life is pretty fun. Yeah. Nice. You know, I think that's really it. And then I think if there was one other one outside of that I already said would just be, you know, if you have lots of employees, it's hard to keep employees, right? And you have to treat them right. And it's during the times when things aren't going well. That's the time that you have people committed to you. It's not when times are going good. When times are going good, it's easy. It's when things don't always work or things go wrong, where your character shows up is what has people follow and continue to work with you. You know, I've had people work with me for a very long time for that reason, you know, and nice. It's been one thing that's been a thriving piece of what I've done that I've learned over the years. Perfect. Great advice, Eliav. So if people want to know more about you or get in touch with you, how can you do that? Best is go to thebotlab.io. We don't have any forms on our site because you can chat with us. So you can live chat, you can book a meeting. If you have a question about chatbots, you want us to take a look at them. Sure. If you're interested in, you know, being able to chat on third-party sites, you know, and be able to do that, whether you're in like B2B or e-com or whatever it is, you're a publisher, like happy to chat with you and walk you through it. We do for free. We literally do analysis and just go, here's the low-hanging fruit to fix your own chatbots. We know you won't do it anyway. And you'll have to hire us anyhow. So it's up to you. There's some motivated people, but for the most part, that's the best way to get in touch with us. And then if you're ever in Seattle and you want to come ballooning in front of a giant volcano, you know, that's Seattle ballooning. Nice. Yeah, great. Well, thanks a lot, Eliav, for this very inspiring conversation. I really love the chat. We're connected now on LinkedIn and let's keep in touch. I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to check out the other episodes because each one is filled with interesting and inspiring stories and energy. Are you following your passion as well and make a good living out of it? Contact me and you could be my next guest. Would you like to follow your passion but are not there yet? Check out my website millionairelifestrategy.com and book an appointment to discover what I could do for you. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends so that they get inspired as well.